Well, hello people, and welcome back to part 44 of Thessia, our Australian-inspired build. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to be doing a massive cattle farm, and we're actually back over by Valkyrie here, where the city very first started off. Taking inspiration from one of the largest cattle farms in the world, Anna Creek Station in South Australia, and we're going to be placing it in these little plains on the outskirts of Valkyrie. Really fun build, also with a rail yard involved as well, which is always fun. Otherwise, let's get stuck into a massive cattle farm build in Thessia, shall we? So these pastures on the edge of Valkyrie are looking like they're going to be perfect for the Goodwin cattle station, and we're naming that after our wonderful Discord mod and Patreon, Brassac. So thank you for all your support, mate, and indeed your help with the train cars that we're going to be bringing into this today as well. So from my research, if I'm not mistaken, the Anna Creek cattle station that we're using for inspiration for this in South Australia is the biggest cattle farm in the world by quite a distance. This thing is enormous in terms of the acreage it covers. I think kind of hectares is a better description of the land it kind of encompasses. So it's super dusty, it's very rural, there's no major infrastructure out here. But also what I found in Australia during my research for this build is a cattle train service has recently kind of begun operations again in Australia. So I'm really keen to bring in a cattle sort of train yard here, which is going to be quite a lot of fun. So we'll get started out. Let's go ahead and start bringing together these dirt roads here. So these are just little dirt road exits, exactly like we see in Australia. Just little dirt road sort of exits here off of a national road that lead down into kind of rural Thessia, into a bit more of a drier environment, and then we'll stumble upon this big cattle yard out here. And then the other one comes down to this road here. So for context of where we are here, if you don't recognise the intro cinematics, we're just on the outskirts of Valkyrie. So way back where the city started. And really nice views from here as well across the rest of the city. And we can see the CBD from here too. Very nice. So we'll build our main farmyard around here in a second, but what I do want to factor in first of all is the cattle train yard. So I want these cattle to be movable by a train. So we're going to turn off the railway power lines here. And we're going to have this track lever over here. Now we could probably also do with upgrading those ones as well, just so there's no power lines on the junction of the track here. And then we're going to bring this straight the way through. Now I don't want it to be hooked in the other side, otherwise the trains are going to start taking this as a shortcut, which I really don't want to do. I really want it to be very much a sort of one-way track out, so Thessia's cattle export comes down this track and then back out of the map. Obviously, hypothetically, we don't have any functioning export here. So we can have that one there. Now I guess actually we could have the grain elevator station here as well, because this is a cargo station. And of course it's grain as well, so it could actually be kind of, I know, like it's there to actually feed the cattle, which I guess would be appropriate. So maybe we will actually have a cargo station down here on second thought. Did kind of forget we actually had this asset. So let's line this up here and we'll just make this part of our train yard. So cattle are brought in here, and I guess now cattle feed is also imported here as well. So let's grab these powerless train lines, bring it down here, and then let's just come straight in like that. Then what we will do is now start to build a little bit of a rail yard structure around this. So let's push our track down, and then we'll use Network Multi-Tools parallel function for this. So we'll go from here down to here, and let's come out a little bit. That's good, and then we'll repeat that again. We'll go from here to here. Just touch of offset. And I think that should be enough. I don't really want the rail yard to kind of dominate the build today. Like I said, looking at Google Earth, there's very little infrastructure out here. So I reckon this one will be okay. Let's pick up those powerless train lines again, so they don't have the power lines on them. There we go, I'm happy with that. And then we can use the road here now to provide connection for that cargo station. If this ends up getting too busy, I might reco this out for something maybe, but I guess it'll also change the other versions of this asset across the map. So I guess we'll sort of see what happens. Cool. So that's kind of the network structure for the cattle yard. Now, big shout out again to Brassac, why he's getting the name of this farm. We will go ahead and get that farmhouse down. Let's first of all put down the farm main building. Now, we do actually have quite a bit of fertile land out here, but I'm not planning to use fields. So we'll push out our industry area. We're going to call this the Goodwin Cattle Station, of course, after the wonderful, beautiful Brassac. Thank you for all your help and suggestions to make the Discord. I really appreciate it. So let's have this here. Now, I'd like to push this back a little bit. Don't want this right on the road. And then we'll just give that a little dirt track there that's going to connect it in. Very nice. And we can build a little yard off the back of this. So looking at Google Earth, there's just lots of little cow sheds. So I'd love to have some actual cattle knocking about. Let's first of all have a look at a large animal pasture. So they are going to want crops to feed them. Now, I wouldn't mind... Oh, can we do... we name him Brassac? We can indeed. Fantastic. So, of course, we're going to want lots of cows, right? So we'll have our cows grazing here. Now, they are going to want crops, so I don't want fields here. However, we are producing crops in Thessia, and these are mock farm fields over by Valkyrie. But my calculations are correct. The Thessia vineyard is actually producing crops, of course, or the Tassoni vineyards, I guess. Now, they have cattle sheds up here that's also producing, although they're actually complaining of not enough crops. You guys should be getting crops, so there's a ton of fields here. You should be okay. So, yeah, I guess just waiting for those farms to pick them up, isn't it? So, they will also make their way over here eventually, but that's quite a long way for them to come. So, I also think some large grain silos in and around the complex here would be sort of quite welcome, right? So let's have our animal pastures set back a little bit. We'll give them a little road down this way as well. Knock them over a touch. And then I guess we'll have quite a few of these pastures, so let's start setting up some frames for them to sit on. Now, it's possible we might actually want to... I guess it's network multi-unlock for this, isn't it? Because they're... Yeah, they are fence segments, so... we could unlock each of these fence areas here. To that extent. Probably leave the ones on the front. Then delete them. Which opens up the cow pasture itself. And then we'll do our own fencing around it, of course. And then what I would like to do now is change that to cows, of course, which it will be. Let's go ahead and just chuck down grain silos so we can start importing crops to this area. We'll find a more appropriate place for it in a second when we start to build the farm. There we go, here comes the crops. And there appears the cows. Fantastic. Wonderful. So if I copy and paste you, yeah, you don't come in again, do you? That's okay though. We'll just have to keep unlocking these segments, but the thought process here, of course, is that we can essentially widen out these cow pastures to be a little wider than they are in the game, just by unlocking their segments, keeping the fence on the front, and probably, is that gravel painter underneath them? It's not, is it? That's okay though, we can just merge it a little bit closer together. There we go, something like that. So when that gets crops, we'll also have some more cows out here. And then we can just have our cows grazing as part of our cattle farm over this way. So, probably do this quite a few times, because I would like quite a lot of cows out here. Now we've also got some cow props as well, so we can kind of visually extend these if we like. How dissimilar are these to the cows in the paddock? Yeah, they're not too bad, are they? Have to get some stationary cows. Farmers out here too. Is this Brassac? No, just another farmer. Not sure. Was a Brassac at the main building? He is, wonderful. Brassac's doing some work over there. Okay, so they've already eaten those cows, those crops, sorry. So I really like that. Let's go ahead and chuck a few more of these down. Fabulous. So that gives us our functioning cow fields. We'll definitely tie a lot of this together come the detailing time lapse. So I just want to make sure we're all at the same height here as well as over this side. There we go. So we'll essentially make this one big cow grazing pasture, which I think should work quite nicely. And then of course, because these are farming DLC assets, they will all just tie together quite nicely with a little bit of farm fence and all running right around the edge. And then we can dictate exactly just how big this sort of, I guess it's a modular pasture now, isn't it? Because you can run it for as long and as wide as you want if you want to follow the same technique. I'll that run down to this one. Cool. And I reckon we'll probably end up painting all of it with Surface Painter. Maybe try and make some differentiations in the texture. Just get it all that brown colour. Cool. So now we can have the texture and aesthetic of kind of large herds of cows, I guess, alright? And then we can build in a little gate here as well, somewhere maybe where they're let out to go and free roam across the sort of the plains, if you like, when they're not sort of here for processing. So certainly a lot of fun to have, and maybe we can mix and match some smaller ones in there as well to fill some of the more awkward space. That does achieve sort of cow vibe I was after. Okay, we'll of course tidy it up during our detailing time lapse. But now let's turn our attention toward what's going to happen with the yard. So there's definitely some more farming DLC assets we can use here. I'd love to have the cattle sheds themselves, which are going to obviously provide shelter for the cattle. Wouldn't mind having one of these over here actually. Let's maybe have one on the corner. Looking at Google Earth satellite imagery, there's just lots of little sheds and huts around this place, so that's really what I want to try piece together. So let's go for the milking parlour as well. We'll also have this one run around the back of this building. And then there's another little shed up this way. Don't make sure we don't encroach too much upon the farmhouse here. So this asset needs a little bit of work. Definitely want to get rid of those parking spaces. On the front of it, there's essentially zero concrete out here. So we will make sure we paint over that with the surface painter. And we'll tidy this up with brushes where we need to, so it's not so jagged around the edges and doesn't look quite so unnatural. I'm happy to have that on there. And then in between that, just fill this space with little houses, outbuildings, definitely things from vanilla farming would be welcome. Lots of these little numbers. That sort of stuff is perfect. Let's have this. That over here just a little bit off. And also bring up a little road to this one as well. Perfect. A little bit more surface painter there just to hide that concrete. So bring it down like that too. And then the farm just becomes a big sort of scape of these little buildings. You can see it in Google Earth. There's multiple different ones. There's some trees knocking around here as well, quite distinctive tree lines, which I imagine are there to kind of demarcate land boundaries. Let's not use the build guide forest though. That's not appropriate for here. Let's do Thessia one. And then we'll follow some of our roads as well with some of those tree linings. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that, I think. And let's also have some further roads come out here as well. Have some more sort of rural, smaller sheds. Definitely stuff like this, and we'll place it at the end of the road. There's like a little hut at the end of the sort of farm track, and then wrap a little dirt roundabout, I guess, around the bottom of it there. We can have this one sort of stand on its own, maybe with one of those sort of demarcating tree boundaries behind it that runs up to the line. Then meets up with this one. So that vibe is kind of starting to piece together, actually. Quite happy now. Really want to kind of hit the scale of a build like this, because it's, again, it's the biggest cattle farm in the world. I believe I read somewhere it's bigger than some countries as well, which is insane when you think about that, isn't it? Imagine the sort of admin that actually goes into running a business like that. It's pretty insane, isn't it? Not that bad. Keep doing what we're doing. Keep bringing all these little roads and junctions out where it makes sense. I think we can also possibly complement the train station as well with some further buildings, because there does seem to be quite a few silos around here again, which I imagine are storing grain. We can probably have our farm DLC silo up here too. Kind of blend it in, make it look like it's all part of the same bit of admin for the farm, right? Bit of service painted through here as well. Cool, so slowly but surely we can start to piece this vibe together, can't we? Of a sort of mass industrial cattle farm that fills an enormous amount of space, and lots of prop work required through here. Plenty of service painter and decals will also help tie things together as well. But otherwise, I don't mind that at all. I would also like to unlock this segment and replace it with one of the ones without power lines. There we go. And then I was also asking Brassack in the Discord as well to name drop him again as to what kind of cars we could actually load the cattle into. So, oh, are you okay, cargo train? Okay. I don't know why it spawned on that one, but that's fine, I suppose. Not sure. We'll work with it. Yeah, so I was asking Brassack as to what kind of cars our cows could be loaded into, and the answer was any sort of box car. Unfortunately, there is no livestock train cars on the workshop, which would have been perfect based on what we've seen on that website. I'll throw the website up on screen if you want to go check it out. It's actually pretty cool to go see sort of this insane livestock infrastructure. But any sort of box car would be fine. So we've got a couple here. We've got the Coast Range. We've got the Australasia rail network, Skylines services, Arrowhead and Western. I feel like the orange ones might be pretty cool. Yeah, I think we go for, which one was it? This one here? Yeah, let's do this one. So we'll line them up, ready to accept cattle being loaded onto them. I think I'm happy with that. And then we'll just have our cattle train yard here. So apparently there's people in Australia who are very fond and very happy to see these cattle train services back in action again. Maybe we can have a very long one kind of all the way back here ready for storage. I just have quite a lot of them. It's going to be a very long train to move the amount of cattle you think Australia would produce. And then we'll have another one. Maybe change up some of the box cars for a different style. Then we have them here. And we'll do another one over this way. Apparently it is cool for cattle to be loaded into this kind of train car at least. So we can just have a little mini rail yard out here. Although we can see a little discrepancy in the height there, can't we? Let's make sure we change that before I forget. Change it up back to the node height here. And that should keep everyone happy, I think. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. And then we'll have some of that Thessia sort of dry belt flanking this very dusty rail yard. There's a service painter, maybe some more resource painter around here as well. I think we're using oil for the most part, but we could also use some ore as well. Ore is a little bit drier. Wouldn't mind mixing and matching the two, although they don't blend amazingly well. But I think having that little green strip there might actually be quite a nice excuse for a little bit of tree line and sort of dividing line to come in maybe. So sort of spread it through there. I think just painting the textures on the ground like that's really going to help us carve up quite a lot of landscape. I think honestly having different textures on the ground just completes the build rather than just having endless green in your theme. Very much evident in the way we did Valkyrie's kind of visually aesthetic farms using those tree lines and surface painted lines to just help break up some of the countryside around the edge of the town. Kind of a similar process to what we're playing with here, really, with kind of a big industrial Australian cattle farm. Could be cool. Anyway, we'll see. So there's one more thing I wanted to talk about before we move into some very heavy prop detailing, because this thing's going to take a ton of props to bring together, I think. Lots of little outhouses like this. And that's going to be a little watering hole, which I think we're going to name after Brass Axe Dog as well. So little watering hole might be nice. Why don't we maybe bring it in here? So let's sink our terrain down a touch. Don't want it to be... Don't want it to qualify as a lake, I guess, is the take-home point here. Shallow enough for cows to not drown in it, I suppose. So what's that? Four or five contour lines deep. Let's have this here. And we'll push it back out. It does actually look like there's a old dried up riverbed at the Anna Creek station in South Australia, the one we're taking inspiration from. But we're not really playing with kind of an outback theme, really, in Australia. I think you could almost argue playing with the outback theme would be an entirely separate build. We're quite sort of tropical Australian here, a little bit more Queensland vibes, sort of northern territories rather than the dry. So we'll have that there, and then we'll surround this with our Thessia belt. And we'll also have some little props around here as well. And I'll blend it into the farmscape as a whole. And a couple of rocks around here as well might go quite nicely. We don't choose our volcanic rocks. We're far from the volcano, which, by the way, thank you for the support on that last episode. You guys really enjoyed the whole sort of concept of using the theme mixer as a way to change up the colour of lava, or well, poop water, to make it appear like lava. A very neat build. That's very unusual. I was thinking, I don't know how this one's going to be received. But it was received very well, so thank you for support on it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And then maybe some little dirt tracks as well down here into the water. Stuff like that near the pasture. I guess we'll see, right? But we will actually name this as well. We will give it its own little district. Let's go ahead and make this a small one. And there we go. Lovely. And we'll call this the Alfie watering hole. Not hoe, there we go. Make sure it's definitely not the Alfie watering hoe. Fabulous. So that should be okay. We've also added optimized outside connections into the mod set as well. I've left everything as it should be. Cuboid recommends 3 times for big passenger vehicles and 4 times for the cargo spawning. And then I've just disabled dummy road traffic. So it doesn't come through, but everything comes as the mod is set up. What it does is it just makes sure that the trains and basically anything that comes in from an outside connection, a boat, a plane, or a train comes in fully loaded and not coming in with like 10 people on it. So your networks just become a lot more quieter, a lot more sensibly scheduled as in real life, rather than City Skylines throwing as much crap as it can. You'll notice as well our ferries are much less frequent now as well. There's not like 20 ferries all passing each other. Again, if you click on these guys, you'll see that they are now fully loaded. So yeah, we just have plenty of nice ships now coming into the city, which is always nice. So otherwise, that's the general concept of the mass cattle farm now set up. It needs a lot of prop work around it, a lot more detailing, and we'll get our cattle yards properly set up as well. And gives lots of tree lining, a little bit more detail around the train yard, props in and around the farm space itself, and generally recreate what we see around the Anna Creek station. Otherwise, let's do some detailing, and then we'll be right back. Right, so let's have a little detailed review, shall we, on what's happened on the outskirts of Valkyrie. So, off of our entry roundabout interchange, we arrive at some now IMT junctions. We also find some classic Valkyrie beta signs, of course, on the way into Valkyrie, and a Thessia sign as well, courtesy of our wonderful community. Absolutely love these billboards, they make such a cool difference. And then we'll snake down the dirt path, and also alongside the rail, which has now been fenced up with some appropriate signals to let trains in and out of the yard when they're allowed to come. It looks like we're about to get one here now, are we? Looks like we are. Very fun indeed. Wonderful. So there goes the cattle packed into some timber logs. So at the gate, we have one of our little cattle grid props, which is a really nice addition into a farm track, isn't it? Just very subtle bit of prop work, but goes a long way to just sort of suggesting what's actually down here. And then our tree line fields come all the way down into the yard, where we arrive at our first yard over here, where we got some more brick buildings placed in, other general farm buildings all extended with props around the back. Lighting here as well, so it's not too dark. The mooing is incessant. You have to apologise. I'll try to bring the volume down during the edit, but my goodness gracious me, is it deafening. The hordes, the Thessia cow army over here. Where we do come into a little gate here into the cow pasture with a little bit of tree and overgrowth, and I absolutely love this screenshot here. It's kind of super rural farm vibes, isn't it? Especially with old farmer Brassack knocking about in here as well. Really cool. So yeah, these are just filled with large animal pastures now, all helping to produce the animal product, which is then processed across the farm. Where we have our milking parlour here as well, alongside some more prop work with some forklifts, moving the silage about the farm as and when it's needed, and then some more prop work around some more industrial evolution. Really like the addition of some kind of older brick outbuildings to the farm space. I think that's really nice. So industrial evolution yet again turning out to be really nice. Then our farm here has been extended with dirt paths and fencing around the edge of it, also some lights across the whole facility as well. It's super dark here at night. With trees and some more outbuildings. Turn our attention to this space here. We do have the dirt road that now runs parallel with the track down towards the edge of the farm perimeter. We've also got some big lights in here as well, just so the rail yard is lit at night. Then buildings through here, more props. We've also got some cows ready for processing as well, being led onto one of the box cars by good old Mitch, who is working as a rancher in his free time, away of course from policing the Thessia streets. Then use the antelope fencing from Park Life just to help line the cows up, to help guide them into the boxcars, and use some of the steps to help obviously line them up. And then down here we just have our fully lined rail yard now, full of boxcars ready to accept cattle and be pulled onto a locomotive, of course, whenever they're needed. And then there's general industrial prop work here, kind of sacks of grain and feed and forklifts and containers and trucks and little outhouses and general collections of props just to help flesh out the spaces around those major industrial zones. Further down this track, just have some more of those random outhouses with a little bit more prop work right at the end of the track. Really like how all this turned out. I like a bit of a general storage down here. Maybe they need to close the farm road off, and they just sort of stick all this stuff down here until it's ready to be used. And then over here we also have our lake now, which has been fully overgrown with little rocks around here. And we've also got Mitch and Jerry leading some cows down to the water over here as well, which is really cool. I really like this. A super cute view over to that watering hole on the farmlands. Yeah, I really like all the space around the cow pastures. It turned out really nicely. Yeah, super cute. Hordes of cows. Jerry and Mitch over here as well doing their job. It was really cool. Little cow over here eating some grass as well. Cow props came in clutch, didn't they? Over here I've done some more cow stuff, and from my, for lack of a better phrase, cow research, I believe that cows are separated across the farm based on their age. So we can pretend these are some slightly older or younger cows perhaps over just across the tree line from the main army over here. And then we do have some more silage over here as well, which we imagine is cut grass ready to feed the cows during the winter. Then some more processing here just to help keep the farm industry alive. Of course, with more processing because there's a ton of animal product being produced from this farm. And then all this farm space wraps up around. Back onto another perimeter fence here with the cattle grid. before these dirt roads kind of cross the Thessian countryside, if you like, kind of really helping hammer home that sort of vibe of distance that I really want to create here. You know, of this farm is out in the sticks. You've got to kind of come down a national road out of Valkyrie, and then you get onto the national road, and after that you've got to go down a dirt road before you actually get to the farm. I really wanted to try recreate that. And around here, an advert for Ascension Run, which is a billboard, of course, courtesy of Bradders, an absolutely beautiful human being with fantastic character. And then we've also got more rocks around here, a little bit more overgrowth as well. That does help sort of settle in the network of the train lines that crosses over the road here. And we also added in a little water tower, which is just off the dirt track on the land of the farm, which has kind of an old broken down chain link fence around it. You imagine this was put up sort of absolutely years ago. That isn't maintained anymore, but there is a water tower now that sits just off of the road. It's actually quite a nice little landmark as well, as you drive into Valkyrie, and a little bit of appreciation as well for this view because we haven't seen it for so long. The view from just looking down the main road into Valkyrie with the mountain and the wind turbines. Really cool. And of course now with the CBD skyline and the Thessia Harbour Bridge all the way over there. It's been really fun building back in Valkyrie again. Well, at least the sort of Valkyrie district, I suppose, because it's been so long since we've been out here. But otherwise, guys, that is going to do it for today. And let's thank you all so much indeed for watching. If you've enjoyed it, those likes, comments, and shares below really do help show the video to more people. And if you're interested in supporting the channel further, there are links down to Patreon and Instant Gaming below, where you can find yourself a whole bunch of extra perks for the channel, and indeed some cheap games as well if you're walking into browse Instant Gaming. Always a deal to be had. So check it out if you haven't already. Big shout out to Brassack again as well for his advice on the boxcars and indeed his namesake farm here in Thessia. I'm pretty sure Brassack isn't watching Thessia at the minute. He's still going through Orchid Bay, so I'm expecting he's going to get here in like 7 months after this video goes out. So thanks for your support, Brassack. Really appreciate it, mate. And indeed a massive shout out to all the patrons that support the channel. Really appreciate all your work. This was a super fun build. We haven't really, every time we do farms, we've obviously done the vineyard in Thessia before, but we always tend to gravitate towards crops and fruit rather than livestock. So doing a dedicated livestock facility is really cool. And of course, Australia is packed with cattle farms, so great inspiration. And really cool to bring kind of a cattle rail yard into it as well. But otherwise, I'll shut up and leave it there. Please do enjoy some wonderful cinematics back in the Valkyrie side of the map. I haven't been over here for a while, so I'm sure the landscape would have changed, especially the horizon view would have changed quite dramatically since we were last over here. And enormous thanks again for all of the support on City Skylines 1 content. I'm glad you guys are still enjoying it so much. And don't forget to check out our Orchid Bay series in CS1 Vanilla, alongside our CS2 series Edinburgh, alongside Anno. And there should be some Next Fest games up on the channel as well soon. But otherwise, I'll shut up and leave it there. Please do enjoy today's cinematic spotlights. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.